Today's episode brought to you by actually having Overwatch League to watch.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How are you?
I am in a new place.
You are.
In a new office. So,
New state.
New state. I'm not in a new state. I'm in the same state. I'm in the same house, really. I'm just in a different room.
Could have been a cooler move, but you ruined it. It's fine.
I blew it. But here we are, man. It feels like, even though we recorded Foul Play yesterday, it still feels like it has been a long time since we've recorded Flagship, like on our own.
Yeah, officially, the long night is over.
Yes.
So we're officially back in action. We did, however, we had things to talk about during the little 2-week break we had, but we also had those podcaster panels, which were a whole lot of fun. We really hope you guys enjoyed them, and it just would have been really duplicate content to do those, put those on the feed, and then also record the episode. So yeah, we thought we would just kind of leave you guys with those. Hopefully you guys did enjoy them. We had a lot of fun doing them. So big thanks to all the other podcasters. Too many to list, since there was literally 19 or 20 different podcasters on between the two panels.
But at the very least, specifically Totemly Drunk, because he was the one that kind of spearheaded the whole idea and got everyone together.
Yes, so specific shout outs to Totemly. Always great to work with him, but yeah, but we're back, and I'm, for one, very excited about it. Finally get to watch some Overwatch League.
Yes, it is. It has been the long night, but it is now over. Our watch is now just beginning. I was going to say our watch has ended, but no, it is just beginning.
Our no watching is
our no watch. Noverwatch is over. Only watch is beginning again. But let's go over a little bit of housekeeping before we jump in. Around the Payload will also be coming back tomorrow, which is going to be Tuesday at 7 Eastern. Got a nice little crew of returners here. We got Ednar, we've got Sabriality, we've got Ham Tornado, and we've got the one and only, I think, if not before, this will probably, with maybe the exception of iPlay, make him the most recurring guest, but that is none other than Hexagrams. Will be coming back.
Volamel's got to be up.
Oh yeah, Volamel too. Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. Hex
has been around for
Hex has
years.
Been around the longest.
Hex has been accruing years of appearances, but yeah, Volamel speed ran right through.
It's true.
Those charts and has got to be pretty high up there. If we're counting ATP, it's definitely a 2-man race between Hex and iPlay if it's flagship appearances.
Yeah, I'm just talking overall High Noon production appearances if you're not an actual host, because Kyle and Thorin obviously would have that.
Right.
But yeah, no, so that's going to be a great episode. Returning back tomorrow. If you guys have been paying attention, you have noticed that we moved Foul Play back one day to Sunday. So we actually recorded that yesterday, and that is actually out on your feeds now. Make sure you check that out. FOWL Play for all of your fantasy Overwatch League needs, wants, reports, everything. We got it. We've got a returning show. It'll be on this feed, so don't worry about going and finding other feed. But a returning segment that we haven't done in quite some time. The Hot Seat is back. We're going to be recording that actually right after this show with none other than the great Root Bear. You may know him from 5 Deadly Venoms. If you're from the Great White North, the Toronto Alpha Flight, and he's also in the running for the Canadian Overwatch World Cup community lead. So we are going to be having him on, talking to him about.
He's also
everything.
The sole member of the Detlef Schrempf fan club.
It's true. Not even
just him.
Not even Detlef himself is in it.
No, he's very self-aware. He's a very smart guy.
Gets it. Yeah.
We'll digress. We'll save it for you on the hot seat. You can have the memes of Root Bear.
I would give it an outline of what we're going to talk about, and a little bit of that is going to be his past. A little bit's going to be 5DV. Some of it's going to be what he's talking about with Overwatch World Cup, but I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea where this is gonna go. I'm just letting. I'm sitting back, and we're just gonna see where this. We're just gonna paddle out a little bit and see where this raft takes us. So it should be a good one, for sure. I'm gonna try.
Levins
to keep
isn't
it
even
under
going to
10
talk
hours.
or ask questions. He's just going to intro him, throw to Root Bear, and then we'll just have like an unscripted convo for 4 hours or something.
I'm gonna try to keep it under 10 hours, but I only have so much power. We will see, but can't wait to have that conversation coming up right after this episode right here. Also, of course, Blackwatch Report, keeping you live and updated on the Tier 2 and other non-Overwatch League scene. Make sure to check them out on their own feed, Blackwatch Report with Kyle and Thorne. Always a good one. But we've been gone for so long, so let's talk a little bit about ourselves. DB, anything fun and new, exciting happened for you in the last 800 weeks?
I'm deep in a pit of Game of Thrones list depression right now. I'm just aimless. I don't know what to do with myself. That's the real reason we moved Foul Play to Sundays, just to try to fill that void with something to do.
Something that wasn't pizza.
Nonetheless, I've been just kind of playing a little bit of Dauntless, the new kind of Monster Hunter game that came out. Enjoying that a little bit. Peppering in some Overwatch when I can get a 6-stack going, and really missing Overwatch League. I'm very ready for it to come back. I want to. It drives me to play. It just sucks me into all things Overwatch when it's on. And lately, it's been a little too easy to get myself out of it when it's not on. So, I want it back. I want my comp nights back. I want my Overwatch League nights back. All those things. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I've been keeping up with some of the workshop games, and they're evolving, man. Like I saw like a Tekken mod. It's like, okay. Saw Smash Bros, like an even better Smash Bros mod. It's like, I saw Torbjorn basketball, where you're Pharah's and you're using the Torbjorn as the actual ball, and you dunk the Torbjorn into the hoop. That's pretty great. Torball, Torbskitball or something. I don't know. Or Basket Torb, I guess, would make more sense. But yeah, I've just been Basket Bjorn. I think we got there. Just a little bit of brainstorming and punch ups. We got there. I did when I came home after work today. I looked in my mailbox and saw a letter from the New York Excelsior, and I'm like, what in the world is this? I opened this letter to find this masterpiece right here. This is a Pine air freshener, and for those of you in podcast land, I'm very sorry that you can't see this, but this is a air freshener that you would put in your car that literally has Pine's face on it. It is quite possibly the most epic thing I've ever received. I barely remember. I thought that when they put this up I think they tweeted out, I thought it was a joke. I didn't think it was real. Like I for some reason, I remember it being around April Fool's, so I just assumed it was a joke. And to my surprise, here we are with Pine air fresheners. So,
what's it smell like?
I'm assuming it's Pine, but I'm not opening it.
I'd be pretty upset if it wasn't a mix of like Korean barbecue, Doritos, Mountain Dew, and like just all gamer things. Like that's what
it's definitely Pine. I can smell it through the plastic. I mean Pine the person, not Pine the not the scent Pine. Yeah, no, it's not. It's just like,
it was weird that you smelled him at the grand finals when you saw him. You just walked up to him and smelled him. But now it paid off.
It was even weirder because he wasn't there. I could smell Pine on SBB is what actually happened. It was even creepier somehow. SBB, have you high-fived Pine before? Yes. And before he could finish saying yes, I grabbed his hand and sniffed it deeply. All right, before this gets even creepier somehow, let's move on and actually talk about some relevant stuff here.
It's news.
Got a nice little bit of news. Some of the stuff we talked about in the podcaster panels. Well, actually, one of these things I definitely talked about in my podcaster panel, but it deserves a rehashing and a one-on-one talk here, but we will get to that in a second. We got some Toronto Defiant news coming out here. Asher has retired from Toronto, And in his wake, we now have Gods and Sharik, who have been brought up from the Montreal Rebellion. Death, we did talk about this a little bit on Foul Play yesterday, but what's your initial impressions of this change for them?
Well, we've been critical of Yakpung's play for a little while now. It's not been terrible, but there's definitely been some room for improvement as far as the main tank role is concerned. So I think it's great to bring Sharik in, who can either pressure from the bench or take over the role. For what it's worth, from just some conversations and some content that Toronto's put out, it does kind of look like Gods and Sharik will both be starters moving into stage 3. It's notable that these are the first 2 non-Korean members of the team, so now we are a mixed language roster here for Toronto. It's kind of fun. They're doing like the anti-Florida, which historically is a pretty phenomenal plan. So yeah, it's one of those things here where obviously we've been very high on Envy from the off tank position. So if Gods is coming in there, that makes me nervous, but I don't think Gods is super far behind Envy, even though I do like Envy quite a bit. Again, this is all kind of things we did say yesterday on Foul Play, but yeah, it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag here. I think it's going to be a slight upgrade and then maybe like a side grade or a very small drop off going from Envy to Gods. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see exactly how it plays out. I think overall we're looking at a net positive here, but you won't know that until you get these guys in. And it's always the case with call-ups and people that are coming from contenders. Gods is somebody that's been a standout player for a while in the tier 2 scene. So I think he's definitely earned his shot, but standing out in tier 2 doesn't mean anything about what your success is going to be and, on the big stage. So we've definitely got to wait and see exactly how that plays out. But it's a cause to be optimistic, right? Like I'm a Houston fan, so I could be sitting here with 2 teams that just didn't do anything and just stood pat and said, "Oh, it's fine." Like we had a really bad stage 2, but whatever. It'll just.
We're one of the best teams in the league, so we're gonna keep playing as how we are.
It'll just fix itself. It'll be fine. So I think overall that's positive. I think your upside is highest as a team that is bilingual or mixed language. You don't want to be region locking yourself or handicapping yourself in any way. And this is a perfect example. If they think Sharik represented an upgrade at main tank, their willingness to add an English speaker to an otherwise Korean speaking roster just ups their overall the power level of their roster. So I like these changes a lot. We did mention yesterday too, a lot of these guys do have experience working with mixed language rosters, so I think they're going to be able to handle it pretty well. I think there could be some bumps early on, but hopefully things kind of level themselves out and everything gets figured out sooner rather than later. It's one of those things too. It's could be really noticeable because I think when you upgrade at main tank, you have the ability to like the people that were playing well behind that main tank that couldn't get anything done now might be unleashed a little bit, and even if they're playing just as well as they were before, they're going to have more opportunities to make plays. And so yeah, I'm very hopeful as a Toronto fan that they're going to be able to get back, at least if not to the 5-2 stage 1 record they had last time around, at least get closer. Right now they're at 500, so they're in the play-in conversation already. They just kind of need to stay there. Hopefully they can find their way into the top 6 of the standings. So that way they're not dealing with that play-in and they're just locked into the playoffs. And that'll certainly be the goal. What do you think about these 2 in particular joining the team?
I agree with everything that you said about the actual gameplay of it. It's, I think, likely a lateral minus move from a skill perspective, like you said, with Envy to Gods. But just in some of the conversations I've had and have overheard from folks internally with Toronto, there's more than just the skill. There's more than just the skill discussion here, and that's the same for a lot of teams. I mean, there's a reason that Fissure isn't playing right now for Seoul, right? And it's not that he's not good at the game, right? There's other things that are going on, and I think one of the things that we've seen, there's always going to be more aspects to owning an Overwatch League team than just winning and just the the game of Overwatch itself, right? You can have, I mean, NYXL is an exception because they were so good and they have such good players that they're marketable in a lot of ways, or at least some of the players are, the Jonax, the Pines, the SBBs of the world, but they're not English speakers. So I think for at least right now, a largely U.S. audience, it's hard to have super marketable players when all the interviews are through a translator and, the culture is completely different, etc. I think adding English speakers is a good thing from that aspect. And also, I touched on it briefly yesterday in Foul Play, but having the organization standard be mixed roster or at least mixed language is, I think, a good thing, like you mentioned, in the long run, because in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like, who knows what people are going to be coming and going. Obviously, I would think it's probably not going to be a lot. Some of these players might still be playing, but you need to be able to expand your horizons in terms of who you can pick up, who can come in. And if all of this seems very like, oh, well, it has to be this way because it's been that way for the entirety of Overwatch. Well, Overwatch is not even 4 years old, right? Like, if you go to like the New York Yankees or any baseball is a good one because there's a lot of Spanish speaking players and there's Japanese players, but like the standard for the team is likely to speak English. So when you come on the team, you speak English. Everyone, speaks English in the locker room, in the clubhouse, etc. It is part of the organization's identity to be all speaking the same language, etc. Setting up something like that where maybe it's not necessarily everyone has to speak English, but we're going to communicate as a team in English, or we're going to communicate as a team. You need to be able to work in a mixed language roster. I think setting that as an organizational standard is going to help the team out. It's going to help all the teams out long term. I mean, I guess if you're the Seoul Dynasty and you're actually a Seoul team, okay, your organizational standard is going to be different than the Dallas Fuel, for instance, potentially. I think basing your, changing the standard for every team that you sign is not a long-term goal. It's not a long-term success strategy, if that makes any sense. But long story short, I'm happy overall with the changes, and I'm going to be even happier if we can get some W's in this stage.
Yeah, at least more than two. Yeah, like I said, just get back to that 3-4, 4-3 ballpark. And while they're working through these troubles, and then I think they can really make a push in stage 4 and be in a good spot. So
win the games you're supposed to win. Stay competitive in the the Vancouvers and the San Franciscos and the New Yorks of the world. And maybe spike a couple.
San Francisco's and Vancouvers.
And New Yorks of the world. What is?
Can they? You just have to be Atlanta. Pine says I can't beat Atlanta. That's what he says.
Can't beat Atlanta because they don't play. I blame the coaching staff on that one. But before I rage quit the entire show, let's move on and also talk about something that is definitely going to be rage-inducing for me. Tavik and Apply have both officially been cut. I don't actually know if Apply was cut or if he left, but I know Tavik was definitely cut from the Florida Mayhem. The Plupster's gone. He's not in Overwatch League right now. I think this more than most other things to me signifies like the actual death of the old ways. Like what more than Tavik, for the longest time, the number one player in the world, like was dominating all the OG tournaments.
We did a whole episode about why he was better than everybody else in the scene.
Why he was better than everyone else in the scene. It was the Pluppy effect, where our team's going to be playing differently just because they know they're playing against him. Like, this is, man, I don't know, man. Like, what do you think about it? I mean, if we're looking at it from is this the best move to do today? Sure, maybe it is. But from a historical perspective, what do you think?
I have a couple thoughts on this. Overall, as the Florida Mayhem are concerned, listen, Tavik hasn't been good in Overwatch League. There's been times when he hasn't been bad, but he's not been a standout player. He's not been a big asset for the Florida Mayhem. So fine, get rid of him. What I think silly is you already did this. You already put out this blog post. You already put out this tweet. You already cut him. Why'd you cut him twice? But this is the missing piece that wasn't there for the other guys that they traded from their, from their academy team and sent over to the Valiant. This was the missing piece that said, like, so what did you do last time? You actually didn't do anything. You just told everybody that you weren't going to play them. So again, this is just, to me, this had already happened, right? So effectively they were inactive. They weren't off the team. Now they're officially off the team. It's fine. To me, it's no news is good news here. I did think it was really ironic that Tavik was like, I got Scott Testered, like basically throwing bare hands under the bus for being cut. It reminded me of just absolutely every single idiot in my competitive games that thinks it couldn't possibly have anything to do with how I'm playing. What just happened, the result couldn't have come from the product I put out onto the field. No, that was not it. It was because somebody came in with a vendetta and wanted to win for a change. It was just really, really bad look from Tavik, who's supposed to be the veteran, the old guard, like you said. Like, I didn't know the old guard had no idea it just completely backwards opinions about like why you're being released.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
go watch your own tape, Tavik. Right. You tell me, do you think you should have stayed on this team? Because probably not. If you really sit down and objectively watch your own tape, I can't imagine you'd think, hey, I'm popping off just as much as Saya player is right now. Like, that's not what was happening.
The old guard is still like 25 years old. So
I get it, but
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a case of people generally don't look inwards when something bad happens to them. They're always looking outwards for it. And it's the meme. I mean, people like to hate on bare hands for whatever reason. But no, I mean, believe me, I've been the sole card holder for the Pluppy fan club because I made it up for quite some time. Half the people listening right now probably don't even know what a Pluppy is. And I'm not going to tell you. Go look it up. But, I mean, yeah, it's like, I want to see him on Paris. Look, show him some, like, if Tavik seriously believes that he was wronged or that he deserves a spot on an Overwatch League team, just put up,
Yeah,
like, let's see
back on it.
Let's see it happen. I mean, that without going on too much of a tangent, I mean, this goes into a clip that ZP had actually said about why we don't necessarily see Mangachu in Overwatch League right now is because he's been playing for so long and he's been good and he's actually a great player and plays, better than even some players in Overwatch League right now. But like, because he's been playing for so long, his potential, he's got a lot of skill, but he doesn't have a lot of potential because there's not, like, when you've been playing for this long, like, there's only so much more you can go up, right? At least that's the thought process. So like, a lot of these teams would rather have the 18-year-old or the 17-year-old contenders player that's going to be 18, where we don't know how good they're going to be. We're going to have them for 5 years instead of 2 years. We haven't necessarily seen their ceiling yet, where someone like Mangachu, they're kind of at their ceiling potentially, and it's high, but it's known, right? I that's at least kind of the argument that, at least I don't think it was an argument that ZP was necessarily giving. I think he was echoing what he's heard, or at least the thought process behind it. So I don't know. I want to see the Plupster at least give let's see him one more time, or more than that. I want to see him play. Always one of my favorite players since the very, very beginning. I want to see him on a team where, like, he actually gets a chance to shine. And I don't know. The Mayhem wasn't it.
Certainly wasn't. Nobody's shined there, so it might not be his fault, but that's actually not true. Saya players look pretty good.
I mean, the thing about that is, like, they shined when they were misfits, right? But the competition leveled up, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Last thing I want to talk about here, I definitely talked about on the podcaster panel, but it is such a gigantic change here that I certainly wasn't expecting. But Nate Nanzer is officially announced he is leaving the Overwatch League or stepping down from the Overwatch League commissioner spot, and I believe it's been officially confirmed either by Epic or by Blizzard or by both that he's going to Epic Games, aka the publisher for Fortnite, the recently acquired they recently acquired Psyonix, who makes Rocket League, and I think they're also have some hand in Dauntless as well, though I doubt that's for esports.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts here, Death? Nate's gone, man.
Well, first of all, before we get into anything that could be construed as criticism or negativity, I want to thank Nate sincerely for everything he did.
Yeah.
A phenomenal job doing what's never been done before in esports. Set us up with a model that I think is going to work for this game and for this league for a long time. Built it from the ground up with his own two hands. Did a phenomenal job signing all these teams that we root for and that we love. He has made an immeasurable impact on the esports community as a whole and on Overwatch League. With that said, I think the bulk of his work and the bulk of his impact is behind him as a commissioner, right? Like, I think you have way more input, and it's way more important that you're there at the beginning than you are for years 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
So I don't think it's
exciting part.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily a really bad thing for Overwatch League. I mean, it could be if the new guy comes in and makes all these changes and, is a nightmare, but we don't have any reason to think that's the case. But I want to say the thing about the commissioner that I want to be true, and I don't think there's necessarily a person that really exists that fits this role. Like, you need Nate's background, his executive experience and things. You need a shrewd businessman, you need all these things, but I also want somebody that like eats, sleeps, breathes, and bleeds Overwatch, right? And the sheer fact that Nate was willing to leave Overwatch League and go join Epic Games tells me he was probably not the number one overall, like, ideal person to hold the job. Right,
that person probably doesn't exist right now.
Right,
They
right,
won't for another 5
and
years.
that's what I'm saying, right? So that person probably doesn't exist. So yeah, Nate might have been the best option, but like we're not losing like the person that thought he was like his, mission on this planet to build and maintain the Overwatch League, and like, so I'm kind of torn about this. I don't think I've heard a lot of speculation, and somebody in Discord was saying they thought like he just wanted to avoid the logistical nightmare of moving to regionality next season. And listen, if he wanted to avoid a logistical nightmare, he doesn't go to Epic Games to try to fix Fortnite esports. Okay, that's just not what he's going to do. That's a big ball of logistical nightmares.
Yes.
And so I don't put any credence into that. I really think this was, listen, when you want somebody that's like a shrewd businessman and a successful executive, and like if Epic Games opens up the checkbook and says, we're bringing you in, and that's probably what happened, then that person's gonna more than likely move over there. So it's definitely a mixed bag. We really liked Nate. We got to sit down and interview Nate, and it was a big treat for us. And we're super grateful of Blizzard and Nate for giving us his time and allowing us that that ability to interact with the top end of the league. I have no negativity or negative thoughts about Nate and what he did in Overwatch League, but when I heard the news, I was like shocked, and I wanted to be like angry, or I was telling myself I needed to be more emotional about it or more opinionated about it. But at the end of it, every time I really try to think about what's going to change or what's going to be worse, because I just shrug and I go, I don't know, it's probably just going to, Nate wasn't out there making decisions all on his own. Right. And that team that he built and all those people are still there. They're still going to be helping the new commissioner, and the new you kind of at this point as a commissioner, you're just guiding people. You're just like a sounding board, and I don't think we need Nate, even if the new guy, and I have no reason to think he isn't as good as Nate. Again, no reason to think that's true. but like it's probably just not an issue. Like Nate did what only Nate could do already, and that's done, and he's set us up. And I think it's just going to be kind of a non-issue going forward. Even if everybody hates the new guy, right? Like the NFL does just fine.
Status quo.
And 200% of NFL fans hate Roger Goodell with a fiery passion. The guy goes up anytime he's walking to a microphone, the chorus of boos is deafening that washes over him. It's become to the point where it's almost like a meme. Like he will bring a local guest on when he does the draft, like a local legend to stand next to him. And then he'll like make a joke and be like, I can't believe you guys, it was in Tennessee. I can't believe you guys would boo Eddie George like this, you know?
True.
It's like, I've seen that joke played out. Like you don't have to like the commissioner,
right?
You know, he just has to do his job and direct people. And, you know, sometimes you do have to make decisions. I'm sure like the big impact he could make is like if he changed the way disciplinary action was handled or something like that.
Right.
That's something that like the commissioner can do. But at the end of the day, it's just, I don't think it's a huge deal for the Overwatch League. It's only a problem if we get left off in terrible hands. If the next commissioner is inept or lacking in some way. And there's just no reason to think that. I'm assuming Nate had a hand in choosing who his successor would be. I believe, you know, it's Pete. I can't remember the last name. It's a tough last name.
I don't know.
The new commissioner. Well, we should have it, but we don't. And our apologies. But yeah. So like my understanding is he's been like shadowing Nate for a while now. So I almost wonder how long they've had.
These are not overnight decisions that happen.
Right. There's usually a plan in place, and the timing is chosen in advance. And I think there's just no reason to expect them to not handle this well or to expect any real serious negatives to come out of this. So at the end of the day, all we can do is thank Nate for what he's built, what he's done, and hope he's not quite as successful the second time around, because we don't necessarily I personally don't want Fortnite to compete with Overwatch in any capacity, as far as esports is concerned. So.
I'm fine with it competing, because I think if Overwatch League stays where it is and is at that level, like, I mean, from a viewership's perspective, you can make arguments for League of Legends or Dota at given times, but like, it's not the same thing. Overwatch League is another level of involvement. It's another level of structure. It's another level. And if Overwatch League stays there uncontested, it might stagnate and it might not be incentivized to get better, right?
Well, I assume they're going for like a regional league format. Like I think that's why you would bring Nate into me, is to turn your game into a regional esports league like Overwatch League.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the case. Yeah. And who knows? To be honest, Epic's always been kind of random and crazy about what they'll do in esports. All we know for sure is they'll throw a ton of money at it to hide and disguise all their problems and shut the players up and get them to show up anyways and all these things. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see exactly what he does.
It's also not necessarily Fortnite that he's working with. Could be.
Well, I would love
Rocket
it
League.
If he went and if his role was just Rocket League esports. If that's why they bought it, if they just finally made what I think is the obvious concession
to
that like
line up.
a battle royale can't be a top tier esport.
It doesn't need to be.
No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. And that's why I don't. Yeah. It frustrates me when people try to shoehorn it into one and like make it work and have terrible tournament structures and things like that. And just like, well, we have to be an esport, because no, you don't. You're a widely, hugely successful, massively popular game. That's enough. How much money are you making? How much more would you make if you stopped putting how many millions of dollars into prize pools for tournaments that were poorly run? It would just be even better. So yeah, like that's not even a knock to say I don't think a battle royale can be a top tier esport. Isn't even a knock on them, right? Like, I'm really enjoying Dauntless. Dauntless could never be an esport. Like, you know, games don't have to be esports, but some games lend themselves really well to them. And the team aspect of Overwatch is one of them. The team aspect and the whole format of Rocket League makes it, to me, the picture perfect.
Rocket League is a sport. Like
it is. It's like a real sport. You know, and so to me, I would love it. I would be just out of my mind ecstatic if that was Nate Nanzer, if he just became Captain Rocket League and just wore that hat for, you know, and built that up, because the game has grown tremendously as an esport since it's come out, but it was slow to start and it drove me nuts. I didn't understand it when I was super, super into the game and playing it all the time. And then the esport, it's just the growth on it. It's been organic, but it's been steady. But like, I just didn't understand why it didn't skyrocket to the top of the charts, and just like, it was just such a perfect esport to me. So yeah, hopefully that's what he's doing, because then I can have my, I can like have my cake and eat it too. I can be like, Nate, I love you. Thank you for everything you've done. I can't wait to root for you in the future. But if he's like working on trying to, legitimize Fortnite esports, I'm like, it's Sam. Don't go where I can't follow.
Right.
And, I can't follow Frodo there. Don't go. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. I love it, but I just don't view it as like a warning sign, or there's no alarm bells going off in my head. I'm just very, oh, okay. Like, but I don't know. But the sticker shock of it is a very real thing. It's like, whoa. Like, I didn't see it coming. It was a big surprise, but then I really thought about it, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it when you put it like that, it makes sense. I think, I don't know, the cynic in me makes me think, reminds me of all the firings at Activision. Now, not specifically Overwatch League, but like just the little things like Activision, like the perception of Activision is not great. The public perception is not great, which makes me think that internally there's probably even more that we don't know about that's not great. A big executive like Nate Nanzer, who was pivotal in the creation of Overwatch League, leaves. I don't know. That's the cynic. I don't know how much credence I put into my own thoughts there, but I wouldn't be super surprised if it's like there's some sort of meltdown internally with Activision or Blizzard. I don't know. But overall, I agree with your sentiment here. I think it's not going to affect the Overwatch League that much. If anything, I kind of want, what I liked about Nate, and what I think Nate did such a great job, was because he had that background in traditional sports. Like, he played traditional sports, and like, he was a gamer too. But like, you could tell, like, very clearly and purposefully modeled the league after traditional sports, and then filled in the blanks for what makes Overwatch, for what fits for Overwatch. I almost want to see a commissioner who, I don't want to say has no gaming experience, but like, if they had specifically traditional sports experience, or maybe was a commissioner or like an executive for traditional sports, and just created and molded the league in a way that is exactly like traditional sports, and then just deferred judgment for the things that are specifically gaming. Like, oh, well, this is how it should be. Well, actually, it can't be like that because we need to have 12 computers in here. So, okay, great, let's mold it. But like, I think taking the traditional sports route is definitely the way to go, and then shift it for esports, change it to make it fit. I don't know. I know almost nothing about the new commissioner, so maybe he is like that. I don't know.
Chat wants Shane McMahon to be the Overwatch.
Vince McMahon.
Vince is busy tanking the XFL again. It can't be Shane McMahon, because unless every time he shows up on camera, he does his entrance dance. Like, where he's like swinging his arm around, or whatever goofy weirdness he's doing. Like, just like, I don't know. He would have to do that every time, because in my head, he's going to be visually doing that every time I see him, no matter what. Yeah, he's like too much of a meme. The Vince McMahon would work, because like his memes are like his swagger walk, and like, who doesn't kind of want the swagger walk involved? That's all like inadvertently positive.
Him getting gradually more and more excited. So good. Pete Vlastelica.
Yeah.
Vlastelica.
I can't pronounce it when reading it, so that's why I couldn't remember. I did know it was Pete V, but we'll get official pronunciation of the name, and then, I don't know, force ourselves to say it every episode until we remember it.
Pete Brigitta.
Pete V.
Pete. Yeah. But enough about that. I'm sure as more develops, we will be covering that for sure. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, because we got Overwatch to talk about. Let us break this down. Talk about the matches. Starting it off on Thursday, the first match in what seems like forever, we've got the San Francisco Shock versus the Atlanta Reign. Death, who do you got?
San Francisco is going to get back to not dropping maps against mid-tier teams anymore because they really never got away from that. They did drop like one to Shanghai in the playoffs or something like that, and then a couple to Vancouver. But listen, there's no changes in this meta. Nothing's different. The analysis here to me is easy in matches that include San Fran and Vancouver.
Yep.
San Fran wins. It'll probably be 4-0.
Yeah, I cannot argue with that, although I do want to see the rest of the world burn. So I want Atlanta to win against San Francisco just so that the meme of them only beating New York can be gone. But I'm certainly not betting on that. Give me a 4-0 for San Francisco.
I'll keep it alive all by myself if I have to.
Next up, we've got the newly minted Florida Mayhem with Fate versus the Seoul Dynasty. Who do you got?
Well, there's been some initial word that Highly and Illicit might be more involved in the Seoul Dynasty roster this time around, but not having any idea who they're going to play is really nothing new from the Seoul Dynasty camp. Florida has obviously Fate coming in, so it's going to be really exciting to see what he's able to do for this team. That's kind of your window to me. Does Seoul do too much and change too much, and does Florida improve enough? Probably not, though. So give me Seoul 3-1 here. But again, I think this is where we hopefully start to see Florida become that tougher out that we talked about them being when they, dropped all pretense, went full Korean with their roster, and at least started playing like the best players they had over again. But I think Fate has a chance to significantly level this team up, whether that involves a tier jump and able to compete and beat teams like Seoul has yet to be seen. So until they do show that, can't predict it. Yeah, I'll take Seoul 3-1.
I do agree with you that this is your chance. If this is the best chance to pick Florida, I think you can agree with that right now. This is like this. I think you agree that Florida is definitely going to win this. I think you said that specifically. Florida's going to win this, and that you should pick Florida.
I don't think I said that.
Well, picture it like this. This is the opening. There is an opening in the Death Star here to shoot the laser.
Just throw your pick away and let's move on.
Yeah. If the opening is there, if whether or not they can close it is another question. Give me Florida here 3-2. It's been so long I've forgotten how bad of a decision this is, but I'm going with it. Give me the Florida 3-2.
Just a glutton for punishment you are.
I am. I haven't gotten nearly enough. Next up, we've got the Guangzhou Charge versus the Chengdu Hunters.
This one I think is going to be really close. And this one, if you remember back to stage 1, this was one of those matchups that led to every single character in the Overwatch roster being played in like the first week of the season, because these two got against each other and Guangzhou had no problems going to the loony bin to play anything and everything possible to counter what Chengdu was doing. I think this should be an absolutely hysterically fun match to watch, especially if we get a little bit of that stage 1 rematch action. But I will say this. I think Chengdu's whole unique appeal is like not so much a big boost for them anymore, right? Like they've been playing that ignore GOAT strategy for a while. It's not led to massive success for them. And the whole it's hard to prepare against it kind of goes away when you've got, you're playing them for your second time. And
you've literally prepared against it.
Right. And teams have had more than enough time to find a scrim partner that's like willing to play the Chengdu method. I just don't think it's going to be like it's considered a wrinkle for them anymore. And I think teams are a little bit better prepared for it than they were in the past. So I'm still going to give Chengdu the win here because I think Guangzhou is still kind of just an iffy team across the board, but I'm going to say it's 3-2. I think this is going to be really, really close, really competitive. So yeah, I think, it could easily go either direction. I'm not saying Guangzhou can't win or anything like that, but yeah, I'm expecting at least a very close matchup. I think you've got to give Chengdu the edge still, even though they're getting a little stale with their craziness.
Yeah, that's the thing though. They can keep getting crazy. They can keep going crazy. I mean,
4
there's only
levels
so
deep
many
in the
things.
pocket game.
Exactly. They can keep going levels deep. I'm going to agree with you here. Give me Chengdu 3-2. I just don't have the faith in Guangzhou to win right now. Now, from a fantasy perspective, I think both of these teams have great weeks, but that's neither here nor there, unless there is foul play. Make sure you follow foul play. Had to get it in there. Last match on Thursday, we've got the LA Valiant versus the Shanghai Dragons. What do you got?
Yeah, the playoff Shanghai Dragons are coming back for stage 3. No real changes for them, but the Valiant do have some significant changes. Obviously, they've got Shax, McGravy, Fact Fiction. Cannot wait to see Fact Fiction back on the stage. I thought he performed really well with his limited opportunities in season 1. I didn't think it really made sense that he wasn't picked up going into season 2, but here we are. He did find his way onto a roster. Hopefully he can put together some significant tape. I do expect him to be the starter. I don't expect it to be kooky or anything like that, though that is an option. What is he kooky even anymore? Is he a main support? Is he a main tank? Nobody knows. He's a main something and probably main bench. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who else makes it in. We talked a lot yesterday about what might happen between McGravy and Space. This season is definitely lost for the Valiant, so they can do whatever they want. But I don't expect McGravy to really impact the roster. And I hope Shax does, because I really just want to see him, get up into this level and join the team and get worked in. I think he gives them more upside than the other options at DPS, whether it pans out or not. And now's a perfect time to do it. So the Valiant have your classic puncher's chance, but I'm going to be taking the Shanghai Dragons here. I think the Valiant, even if the changes mean a significant upgrade for the team overall, it's probably with it changing 1/3 of the roster with 2 players swapping out or something like that. It's going to take a little while. I said the same thing for Florida. They're probably not going to be at their best their first week as a new unit. So I'm going to lean Shanghai here, but I'll give it 3-1. I think the Valiant are doing some things right here.
Yeah, I'm going to echo your 3-1 here. I think that this is the week I think we're gonna learn a lot about the Valiant season this week specifically. Are they going to super try hard and really focus in and treat each stage like it's a season, and just really, really overhaul, try to win and get it some playoff, get maybe a stage playoff berth, or are they going to try wacky stuff, get their bench players time, really kind of push the boundaries of what we've seen teams do? Because whether they win or lose, if you don't care about the stage playoffs, is completely irrelevant to their. I mean, it's completely. They're not going to make the end of season playoffs, so they don't need to worry about that. They can not throw games, but they can sacrifice games for other gains, if that makes sense. So we're going to see what they're going to do. And regardless, even if they do super try hard it, I agree with your idea that they're not going to be at full strength the first week of a new roster. So I'm going with Shanghai here. Friday, Paris Eternal kick it off versus the Toronto Defiant with their new NA players. What do you think, Death?
Still not big on Paris. They haven't really done anything to make me want to change my mind about
they're
them.
They're the best 3-3 team in the league, guys.
Europe's just the best region in the world, or something. Words people just say things, but all things considered, I'm going to favor Toronto here, much like the Valiant and the other teams that have made some changes. They're probably not going to be at their peak strength, so I won't fall out of my chair if the Paris Eternal do take this one, but I do think there is a not a super wide tier gap difference or anything like that, but I do think Toronto is just across the board a better, more well-constructed roster than the Paris Eternal is. Paris has practiced at the meta fine, but Gods and Sharik were playing goats, just fine not too long ago at the same time. And Contenders didn't have the long break in between Overwatch League seasons, all those things. So I think we can kind of throw out the more practiced argument side for Seoul not for Seoul, but for Paris at this point. And I'm going to lean Toronto again. I won't be surprised if Paris takes it, because changing your entire tank line has got to come with some difficulties and some issues. But yeah, it might just be my heart wanting it to be true. I'll take Toronto 3-1.
Yeah, I'm also going with Toronto here. I mean, this is it's fitting that it's the first match of the stage, because this is a match that on paper you should win. These are the ones that they need to win. Get these wins, build up a little bit of confidence, get a run going. You know, this is the perfect team. It's not necessarily a throwaway like Washington or Florida theoretically at the very least is. But it's a team that, could put up a fight, but I think on paper is worse than Toronto. This is a big one for them, for all the reasons that we've talked about. So give me Toronto with the 3-1 victory here. Next up, we've got the Boston Uprising versus the London Spitfire.
So I guess this is where we find out if Boston is a team that just always performs well when in the face of change, or if they're just a team that starts every stage strong. Because one of the two things does seem to be true, but I do think London, obviously coming off of a really strong stage 2, is going to be the favorite going into this game. I've got them winning 3-1, but you can't ever count Boston out. I do think they were trending downwards as we left stage 2. I sincerely hope that continues, but we've seen enough of them, go up and down, and we've seen more than enough of Boston just refusing to be the bad team that people always peg them to be. When you look at their roster, look at their changes, whatever they're doing, nobody ever has faith except for those guys. And those 7 people, Huck and his 6 starters, always seem to find the faith. And so listen, this can be super close. This has a lot of map 5 potential because Boston is involved. London does characteristically start a little bit slower too, but I just think, again, this is like Toronto, Paris. It's not a huge tier gap, but I do think there's a pretty, at least a 1 tier difference between these two teams, right? Like London's probably the bottom of the 2nd tier, and Boston's probably like top or middle of 3rd tier or something. So, I'll just go with the better team for now.
Yeah, that being said, I mean, I feel like historically Boston is generally pretty good against London. I mean, granted, different Boston teams, essentially. They were definitely trending downwards, but there's one thing we know about Boston. They it does not matter what they did in the previous stage. Like they can lose their star players, they can go 10-0 and be bad the next stage. They can lose their star players and then be amazing the next stage. That doesn't matter at all. So I mean, if I do think there was a bit of a tier difference, but I think Boston has been a little bit more resilient than London. Even though London was on the uptick. I'm going with Boston here. I wouldn't be surprised. I think this one is going to be close. Someone's got to rep Boston. Although I'm certainly not repping them.
You're already repping Florida. You don't got to rep Boston too.
Yeah, but I'm repping them for different reasons. One is because I'm an idiot, and the other is because it's because I want to try.
Why do you like Florida?
Because this is the
shot. Pick Florida because they cut to Veek. I understand. I understand.
That's true. I should recant that. But next up, we've got the Houston Outlaws versus the New York Excelsior, and I'll just start this one off. This is the easiest NYXL 5-0 I've ever picked in my entire life. It's never been easier than this.
Part of me wants to agree with you, Blevins. There's a lot of evidence to suggest it, but your picking Florida has inspired me. I feel obligated that listen, it's just, I've got to go with Houston to lose 4-0. Give me NYXL.
You brought it back.
we're just going to play goats, Forehead. So why would I expect anything to be different?
Yeah. I feel like we have certainly beaten that dead horse enough to move on to the LA Gladiators versus the Dallas Fuel. Man, talk about map 5 potential.
Yeah, this one's going to be great. We've mentioned tier gaps and differences a bunch. There's not one here. If I were to do my power rankings, they'd probably be back-to-back against each other in like the 4 and 5 slots or something like that. These are two teams that are really on the up. And like I said yesterday on Foul Play, both of these teams are trying to be the next San Francisco, the next one to level up and join the elite group. They're right kind of on the edge. They show it at times, but it always tends to, fall down a little bit, or something happens to really keep them from ascending to that absolute top level. One of the things you have to do in order to get there is win games like this here, right? You've got to be able to close out the teams that are close by, or upper middle pack teams. If you want to be elite, you've got to take those decisively. I'm going to lean very, very slightly. Literally, this is like 51% says Gladiators to win this one. I don't know that they really had the opportunity to showcase as good as they've been. They had kind of an easier schedule last stage. That cuts two ways. Maybe they're not as good as they looked better than they are because of that schedule. But something about the way they've kind of come together over time in this meta and developed has me really thinking the Gladiators have just the slightest edge, though. I've said it a couple times. I love the way both of these teams have played and competed in the GOATS meta. They've been a lot of fun to watch. So I think this is kind of like my match of the week. This is the barn burner. I think this is going to be a good one.
I agree, and I'm echoing your Gladiators victory here. Man, I'm still bummed that Dallas beat Toronto, even though, like, looking back, like, Dallas was a very good team, and still is. But I'm going with LA Gladiators here. Yeah, I'm going with a 3-2 as well. I do think that this is going to be there's another one that could be match of the week potential, but this is certainly at the very least a nominee for match of the week. On to Saturday, we have the Hangzhou Spark versus the Philadelphia Fusion. Let me get the music ready here.
Yeah. I have no idea what's going to happen in this one. And anybody that claims they have some beat on it is lying. The only thing that can impact this game is the Philadelphia Fusion. I feel like the Hangzhou Spark are a relatively consistent middle of the road team. They're fine. They're not going to disappoint or embarrass themselves. Philly, on the other hand, can play out of their minds to the point where they could compete with Vancouver, with San Francisco, or they can play bad enough to lose to absolutely anybody. They've lost to Florida this year. So it's completely up to Philly. And I really don't know. And I'll just say it again. I feel like we talked a lot about Seinfeld because of the 90s TV draft. Do you remember Jerry? Hello. It's Uncle Leo.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And there's the scene where he's like doing pull-ups because and Jerry's like daydreaming and he's in prison. And it's like, it's Jerry, hello, and it's like tattooed on his knuckles while he's doing the pull-ups and things like that. And I just feel like that's me with Free Fraggy on my knuckles, like play Fraggy, like I just over and over again. So there's part of me that hopes with the break and with how disappointing stage 2 was, it wakes them up and says, okay, we get it. There might be some personality conflicts, but let's be real here. We need to win some games. We're building this stadium. We're hosting the grand finals. Can we play in it, please? And that would mean something has to change with the starting roster to me. So yeah, and it's completely up to Philly. I always pick against the team that's inconsistent when I'm faced with picking one. So I'm going to give it to Hangzhou 3-2. Doesn't mean it's even going to be a close match. Again, it's all up to this. Could be a 4-0 in either direction. It could be a 3-2 in either direction. Yeah. It's completely up to the Fusion and which team shows up.
Here's what I'll say. This is not a trick question. Who's the best player on the Philadelphia Fusion? Just Carpe. In general. Carpe, right. Who is not the best Zarya in the league by a long shot?
Carpe.
Yeah. That's really all you need to know when your best player doesn't get to play a hero that even remotely shows off his skill. It does not bode well. You take Carpe away from the Philadelphia Fusion, they're all of a sudden looking like an all right team. Not anything too crazy. Like, you don't get to just pull out the hashtag winnable card and just win fights that you have no business winning when Carpe does not have that ability. So yeah, give me Hangzhou. I mean, just give me Hangzhou to win. I don't even know what score I would pick here. If it made
go
sense.
2-0.
Yeah, the even more cowards 2-0. Moving on here, we've got the Vancouver Titans versus the Atlanta Reign. Now, you're not picking Atlanta to upset the Shock, but
Vancouver wins 4-0.
Yeah, no, there's no conversation here. The world's not going to burn. NYXL died for their sins, so there's no way. There's nothing. It's not going to happen. Now what?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if it did, but it's just you can't expect that.
It just throws that wrench right into the parody puzzle. Actually, no, it uses the wrench to fix the parody puzzle.
Break the parody wheel. Because we need more Game of Thrones references because it's over and I'm dead inside.
Yes, I am soon going to be dead outside as well. Moving on, because of all the pizza I'm eating. Actually, we're doing much better because of all the pizza we're not eating on Sundays.
You're not wrong.
Well, physically better, but emotionally I'm drained. Next up, we've got the Seoul Dynasty versus the Guangzhou Charge. What's the scoop?
Guangzhou's just not good, and Seoul tends to be good. Seoul struggles to achieve like greatness or better than good, but Guangzhou struggles to be adequate and competitive. Mm-hmm. So this is probably 2-tier gaps in between these two teams. I'm going to give it to Seoul 4-0. Guangzhou needs the shakeup. They're one of those teams that like needs the meta shakeup because their roster's not bad. It's got some room for improvement. It's not the best, but like they don't seem to fit in this meta. I feel like they substitute too much. They're just there's never anything exciting going on in a Guangzhou match outside of when they play against Chengdu. So that's why I'm so hopeful for their first match this week. But yeah, I'm gonna give it to Seoul here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Guangzhou might be able to take one map if they randomly put Jae Hong on
Winston.
Yeah, Winston, or I'm trying to think of a more obscure character on I don't know, but it's not gonna, doesn't matter. If Jae Hong just chooses to play a blank character where he's just an observer in the match and they're playing 5v6, they might get a win. But I'm not counting on it. Next up,
you never know though. Highly illicit could play. They could be terrible.
True.
I wouldn't put it past Seoul.
They could be highly illicit. Next up, last match on Saturday, we've got the LA Valiant versus the Chengdu Hunters.
Yeah, Valiant are still going to be struggling to fit all their pieces together, get everything figured out. We're probably going to see some significant substitutions going on while they try different combinations of people over the first few matches. I'm going to say Chengdu gets this one. I'm going to give it 3-1. But man, if this was like week 3, I really think there's a decent chance I'd be picking Valiant. Like if this was just a couple weeks down the line.
I think we'll have a much better picture of Valiant.
Yeah.
This is one where I would base this pick entirely on how they did the first match of the week.
Yeah, if they beat Shanghai, you just come right back in and flip it over to the Valiant win this one too.
Yeah, I do think I agree with you. Just in the abstract, I'm going with Chengdu. I'm not picking Valiant to win until they show me it again. Like they've reset, like they got their wins. They show that they have the potential to not just be our good friend 0-7. But like that resets for me until we see what they're actually going to be doing the rest of the season. And rounding out the week on Sunday, we have what is my other pick for match of the week. We've got the New York Excelsior versus the London Spitfire.
Yeah, bound to be really close. Definitely could give us the firepower of a match of the week for sure. Always glad when we get one of these on a Sunday or on one of the weekend days. Just keeps things a little more exciting. It's like the prime time kind of games almost, even though it's early afternoon on a Sunday. But that's when football's on, so we should be in the sports mood. I'm going to give it to New York here, 3-2. London is making massive improvements. New York did, in most people's minds, fall down a tier. This isn't necessarily their meta, but London's kind of in a similar boat. Like I don't think they're built necessarily for goats. They want to be in a 2-2-2 dive kind of a thing to really unlock. And I remember I predicted London having a really good stage 2, and in large part because I looked at their schedule and how difficult it was going to be. So I still think New York's decisively a better team than London, even in this meta. I'm going to give them a 3-2 because these two teams do tend to play each other close. There's a bit of history there, but I don't think it's going to be, your closest nail biter 3-2 in the world either, and it could easily be 3-1 for you.
Yeah, it's just like I put them in the same boat as Seoul, where they play up to NY almost every single time they play them. There's been a couple of exceptions where NY has rolled them, but I mean last time Seoul played them, they upset them in the stage 1 playoffs. I do think it's going to be close. I am going to give the nod here to NY. Even like I'm considering the Atlanta games an outlier. NY is still in the don't pick them to lose until we see it again, or if they're against another S tier team. Yeah.
If they're playing against Atlanta or Vancouver or San Fran, you can pick them to lose. But
I'm not picking them to lose against Atlanta again this season. I will tell you that.
You're right. You're not. They don't play him again.
Got him. Next up, we've got the Paris Eternal versus the Boston Uprising.
Man, two teams that are a little bit struggling, but Boston does tend to always have that, stick around. They're always going to win games. They're always going to be in the conversation.
They're never out of it.
Yeah. So I think Paris might be out of it. They're gonna be kind of similar in the sense that they're gonna win a couple games. They'll probably surprise a team or two throughout the rest of the season for sure. They're not inadequate, but Boston is just a little bit better than not inadequate. They're adequate. And I don't know for sure that they're better than that. We'll see where they level out. Maybe they come back strong from the break. Really, either of these teams could do that. But I think Boston's got to be the favorite here. Give me them 3-1.
If there's one team that I'm betting try-harded, or rather was forced to try hard in the off time, it is Boston. So give me I'll echo your 3-1 for Boston. Second to last match we got here is the Washington Justice versus the Dallas Fuel. I'll kick this off. Washington's not good. Give me Dallas 4-0.
Same. Expert analysis.
Yep. Once Washington starts showing us stuff, namely a signed termination of contract for Giannis, I'm going to keep picking them to lose. Last match of
Florida showed you a pink slip for Tavik, and then you picked him anyways.
Yeah, but if it was
do the
Pluppy,
same thing. So basically,
Pluppy,
Pluppy
is my favorite player,
you
not
like
Tavik.
You like Pluppy just as much as you like Giannis. Fans, you heard it here
Giannis
first. Pluppy and Giannis might be the same person. Have you ever seen them in the same room at the same time?
Yes.
Shut up.
When they've played multiple times, in fact.
I can't prove it. Was the camera ever on both of them at the same time?
Ooh, that I don't know.
We'd have to go back and check the winners' handshakes. I can't rule it out.
You're not wrong. Also, Pluppy, the account Pluppy is actually a luchador that's truly underneath the mask is ZP, but that is an old reference.
I was trying to remember who it was. For whatever reason, I thought it was Slasher, but no, you're right. It was ZP in our meme.
Yeah.
Callback from like 2 years ago.
At least. Last match of the week here, we've got the Vancouver Titans versus the LA Gladiators.
If I was picking with my heart, I would be Shields up right now, but Vancouver's going to win this one, and it's going to be 3-1.
It's
not picking against them.
S plus versus A minus right now.
There is
maybe B+.
I would pick them to beat San Francisco if they faced in the regular season this week. So yeah, there's nobody I would pick to beat Vancouver at the moment. Give me the Gladiator, or no, yeah, give me the Titans 3-1 here. Over.
Yeah, it's a fool's errand to pick against them at this point unless they come out really bad for multiple weeks. They're just pencil them in as a W for the rest of the season. Really, I think it's early to call the literal last match of the season against NY, but things might change.
New York can't even beat
Atlanta.
Shut up! I've been waiting. I need to go buy the entire Atlanta Reign organization a beer because they've given me a gift that nobody could have given me. Literally anybody could have given me had they beaten New York in back-to-back weeks. But Atlanta's the one that did do it. We should be... I was going to say, I need to get to the homestand so that I can show my apprieciation, but I already can't go. So now I need them to
I was going to say, I looked at the tickets. There's no way I looked at the tickets like a month ago. Not happening.
Too expensive?
Too expensive for the tickets.
We'd have gotten press access, and we'd have been sleeping on iPhone's floor.
The ticket to get into the event was not the issue. It was the plane ticket.
Oh,
Which
gotcha.
is surprisingly expensive considering it's not that far away. But regardless, that's the matches, guys and gals. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with me? Man, I'm going to look like
No,
such
they
a
don't.
genius
They
when
don't agree.
Florida wins this week. I can't
You know,
wait. I
gotta
wait.
say,
In bare
as-
hands we trust.
As ridiculous as I find your pick'ems to be so often, they do find a way to like defy all logic in the moment that you do it,
Nature,
and it's like
finds a way.
it's just ridiculous. It's like Florida literally plays for you. Like bare hands is now going to be like, I don't know, he's going to be pumping Adderall into their veins or something like that for this matchup because you picked them. He waits.
Irons in the fire,
Yeah,
baby. Irons in the fire. That's all I gotta say. But
iron in the fire.
irons in the fires.
Singular iron in the fire.
Yeah, whatever. But it's a pretty big iron. You got to admit, it was a pretty big iron.
It was a huge iron.
Huge iron. Not an absolute unit, but huge
No.
iron. Not even a big
Big ol'
chungus. But that is going to be it, guys. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. If you're here live, stick around in about 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to be coming back with the hot seat for the Great Root Bear. If you're listening in podcast land, it will be the next episode right after this. So stick around and listen to it. Deathlow, any last parting words before we go?
No, that's it, man. Enjoy stage 3. Getting exciting. Join us on
Stage
Discord.
3
We got the live tournament
Stage
talk.
for me.
Let's get that popping for stage 3
Let's
again.
get it popping. I'm ready to start talking again. But guys, that is going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you check out highnoonpodcast.com and every social media outlet that you can think of. We are High Noon Podcast. We got all of the things: YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Twitch, Twitter, all that stuff. All of it is High Noon Podcast. But guys,
Discord.me/High
yes,
Noon
I
Podcast.
finally fixed it. Discord.me/High Noon Podcast is the place to go. And guys, in the Discord, make sure you get your stage 3 power rankings
ranking contest
contest
submissions, yes.
in. Get them in now if you have not already. But that is going to be it for Deathblow. I am the Lovins. And remember, guys, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Bare hands we trust, baby. And bare hands we trust.